Hello and welcome to lesson 2 in this Photoshop course. In this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to brighten up the light sources on the left here and the right, and we're also going to change the highlights and the shadows on the woman using a 50% grey layer. So let's jump straight into Photoshop where we left off, and what I'm going to do first is just hide these help layers. We can see the groups turned off, we don't need them for this part of the edit. So I'm just going to come down to the background layer. We only want to brighten these light sources behind the woman. We don't want to actually adjust any of the lighting on the woman. So by doing it below the woman layer, we're not going to affect that layer. And what I want to do, I just want to select a adjustment layer of solid color, and that is white. And I want to come up to our layer blend mode and I want to select soft light. So there we go, soft light. You can see it's brightened everything up. Now what we're going to do, we're going to fill our layer mask with black. So I'm just going to do that there. So we have our layer mask filled, and what I want to do is just grab the brush tool and brush, and with white, so reveal, we're going to brush on our layer mask to reveal. So let's just increase the brush size there, and let's take the opacity to around 40 and the flow to 40 as well. And then what you want to do, you just want to brush in and just kind of make these light sources brighter. Now how strong you want this effect is entirely up to you. So if I click, you can see there that's brightening up, and let's do the same on the left. So just making that brighter, maybe down here. So there, that's just kind of global. So you can see on our layer mask there, if I hold down Alt and click on the layer mask, you can see what's being revealed. Okay, so now I want to do the exact same again. I want a new solid color, but I actually want to do it this time. I'm just going to select OK. I'm just going to turn this off. I want to pick a color from the background. So I want to pick like a yellowy sort of tone. So there's a yellow tone there. And now if we double click on our layer and select this yellowy tone, OK. Let's turn this on and do the same again. Select soft light. And then in our layer mask, let's come up this time to edit, and we want to fill, and we want to fill with black, which is currently our background color. So let's click OK, so that's filled. Now we want to grab the brush tool again, and we're just going to brush in on the right hand side this time. Again, 40% opacity and flow on the layer mask, which is currently filled with black. So if I do so, you can see that's going to just brighten up, but it's just going to add yellowy tones in. So this is before and this is after. So you can see the light source getting brighter. I'm just going to do this quite intense by the actual light source itself. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to do this one more time. We're going to do the exact same, so let's click OK to add this solid color layer adjustment, turn it off. I'm just going to grab our color picker up here and select some red tones here, bright red, and double click on this icon here to change the color of the solid color adjustment layer. Select the red tone, click OK, turn this layer on. We want to fill with black, so again I'm going to come up to edit and fill with background color. Job done. Now we want to select the brush as we did with the other two layers. We've got white as our color, opacity 40, flow 40. Just going to click in just to add some reddy tones in. So that's going to quite heavily brighten our image. Now at any point you can double click on this icon and we can adjust these tones. So maybe you want to make it a bit whiter, which I do in this case, to more of a pinky tone rather than an intense red, which is going to brighten it up nicely. So let's have a quick look at those. So let's turn that off, off, off. So this is a global adjustment just to brighten them up. This is adding more yellowy tones to the right hand side to brighten, on the left sort of a pinky hue to brighten it up over there. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to create a new group, and I'm just going to call this group lights. Perfect. So then we can see it before and after. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to actually adjust the lights on the woman, because currently they're not correct. What we have is, for example, on the right hand side of this leg we have dark sort of tones. It's much darker, right? That's in the shadow. However, the light source is coming in from the right hand side onto this part of the leg, so that is incorrect. We don't want that part to be dark, we want that to be a highlight. And the same on the hand and the hand up here. So what we want to do is adjust those. Now to do that, we're going to create a new layer. Just click on the new layer icon. We're going to go to edit, we're going to come to fill, and we want to fill with 50% grey. So let's go on this contents, select that, drop down, select 50% grey and click OK. So you can see there, obviously it's covered the whole image. Now we want to set this to soft light. Now because this is 50% grey, you'll see no effect. So if I turn this off and then back on, there's actually no change, and that's okay, because what we're going to do is dodge and burn on this layer, which is going to create the highlights and the shadows that we want. So what we want to actually do first is apply this only to the woman layer. So I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard. You'll see this little clipping mask icon appear, so just click in between those layers, and we've added that to the stack now of all these layers applying only to the woman. Now what you want to do, this is quite a let's say a semi-difficult technique. You want to grab the dodge and burn tool. So dodge is going to brighten and burn is going to darken. So for example, let's come over here onto the woman. You've got your exposure over here, so I'm just going to select this at 40. I want this to be quite, what I'm going to do is quite change this quite these darker areas, and then I'll maybe reduce the exposure down and just do some other areas. We've got the midtones, so you want the midtones, you can do it on the shadows, midtones and highlights. Select midtones, and what we're going to do, I'm just going to brush on this layer, and what you're going to do is see that it brightens up. So let's just turn that off and back on. You can see it's brighter. Now we've got 40 as the exposure, so we can go ahead and actually do that again. So what you want to do is build up this effect so that this area along the right hand side is actually brighter, which is what we want. So let's keep going along this right hand side. Let's turn this off and back on. You can see straight away that's a big improvement. So there we go. That's much brighter. Now what we're going to do later on in this course is actually add proper highlights, yellow highlights. So we're just kind of actually trying to adjust this as best possible. We're not trying to add highlights in at this point. Just bear that in mind. Okay, so what we want to do is, I'm just going to do this leg first. I'm just going to come again and grab the dodge tool, and I'm just going to go around the image, like across the top of the foot, for example. Any part that is going to be in the light, I want to adjust it and make sure that the lighting is correct on there. So all along the right side here on the top of the foot would be in the light. So you can come up here, just hold down spacebar to grab the hand, and you can click and drag, and then maybe a bit lighter there. And we can do the same up the right hand side, which would all be in light. It's slightly affecting the blacks there, you can just about see. Again, all this right hand side, this is all going to be in the light. And that's one thing you want to check when you're placing images into a composition. You need to look at the light, and you need to make sure that the adjustments you make are trying to basically, well, as long as you're going for a realistic result, that the light sources match the image you place in from the stock image. That's the best case scenario. If they don't, then you're going to have to make the adjustments yourself, and this is a great way to do so. So all under this hand, we're going to brighten this right up, just because that bit would be in the light. So let's do that here. Under the thumb, on the fingers, I'm just going to make the brush bigger there. Just come in. So again, let's turn that off and back on. You can see already that's a great improvement. Much better lighting that matches the light source in the image we've placed this woman into. So that's across the right hand side. Again, I'm going to go down here across the right just to make sure that's all good. So now we can move on to the hair. So again, all around this right hand side is going to be brighter along the top. Now remember, we have two light sources here. We've got this one on the left and the one on the right, so you want to bear that in mind when you're doing the highlights. So around the top of the hair here is all going to be brighter as well. So let's brighten that up nicely. Again, just click in and drag in and brush in to build up the effect. Again, on the face, on the right hand side of the face, on the nose, it's going to all have highlights from this light source on the left, the red light source. So let's brighten all of that up under here, on the chin. Okay, and then the same is going to be down the woman's arm. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to speed up the video and brush in all the highlights, and I'll rejoin you when we do all the shadows. Okay, so we have brushed in the highlights. we've better corrected the image. So I'm just going to turn these off so you guys can see the effect. So this is before and this is after. Now essentially what I've done is brushed in across all the edges on this left side and all the edges on this right side. Now you can also use this or take this as an opportunity to actually brighten up some of the darker areas. So maybe you think her neck's too dark, you just come in and brush there. Yeah, and the hair, for example, you can just brush it in. So that was with the exposure at 40, affecting the midtones using the dodge tool. So what I'm going to do next, I'm maybe going to brighten up some of this leg under here because that would catch some of this yellow light. So let's just come in and brush in there to better match our image, this background image. Okay, perfect. So this time I'm just going to click and hold and select the burn tool. So now this is going to do the opposite. This is going to add in the shadows. So obviously whenever you're adjusting the highlights, you need to adjust the shadows. Always bear that in mind. They come together. You can't just adjust one. So we want to then darken certain areas that aren't going to be in the light. Now these two light sources are behind the woman, coming diagonally in. So areas like here and down the middle of her leg are going to be darker. So what we want to do is burn those areas. So I'm just going to select the burn tool, and again with exposure at 50, I'm just going to click and drag on some of these areas that I think should be darker, like along here. Okay, so that effect is quite extreme. I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to take this exposure down to about 25. I'm just going to do the same, so it's a bit of a more of a subtle effect. Okay, there we go. So again, on the woman's chest, that area would be darker around the chin here. So areas that aren't going to catch the light. In the middle here on her arm. Okay, and then on the head up here. The underside of her jacket. And the top part of her leg here. Inside of her leg there, that's not going to be catching the light. This would be here, so we can see that her coat, her jumper would be almost creating a harsher shadow here, so we can kind of brush that in. Okay, and the underside of the legs, inside here on the legs is going to be much darker, so we can just brush this in, kind of build up this effect. Same down the middle of the leg here, on the knee, and this underside of her knee here isn't going to be catching the light. Down the middle of the sock, and then the underneath down here on the foot. And then we just want to continue in this way, just building up the effect, making sure that we've covered all areas. Again, you can turn this off and back on so you can see the changes that you've made. And I'm just going to come up here and do some more areas like under the chin, around the neck. These areas would be darker. And then probably on this arm, I'm just going to do down the left a little bit, in the middle here, just brush down. Take your time with this, there's no rush to build up the effect. You kind of want to be as precise as you can be. So again, across the top here, so this bit of the hand. So you're essentially trying to match the highlights and the shadows of the sort of background image or the image that you've placed your image into. So let's have a look how this has turned out. So let's turn this off. So there's before, and this is after. So you can see much better match on all the highlights down this right hand side. Let's go again, before and after. And what I'm actually going to do at this point is I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to actually brush in some more. So this time I'm just going to select the dodge tool. I just want to add in some more sort of brighter tones over here. I'm just going to reduce the exposure down to 26, that is, around 20, in the 20s. Just brush in on this right hand side. Just a kind of bigger effect, just to brighten her up. And I'm going to do this top part of her arm, so this is going to catch the red light. So again there, on the face. Just going to do across the top of the arm, brighten the whole sort of arm up a little bit. I think that arm's too dark there. Okay, down the foot. Let's go around the top of the foot. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's turn that off and back on. That is a much better effect, and it's going to better match the image. So let's zoom out so we can see it in better view, sort of full view. So let's turn that off. and back on. So there we go. That is how you brighten the light sources in your image and also adjust the highlights and the shadows to better match two images together to help with this realistic combination. That's everything for this tutorial. I shall see you in the next one. We'll continue this edit.